Hello, everyone, and welcome to Doughnuts for Breakfast here at Desire to Inspire Studios Foundation. My name is Trevor Henley, and just in case you can't see, I'm the one with the mask. Oh, wait, no, we all have masks, but I'm talking over here. Trevor Henley, inspirational activist, Desire to Inspire Studios Foundation. We have with us the amazing, the incredible, the knowledgeable Raw Feesby.
Oh my gosh. Hey y'all, Operations Director, Desire to Inspire Studios Foundation. That was surprising. Just to my left and diagonal is the ever-inspiring Dr. Michael Pritchard.
Thank you, Raw, and a pleasure to be here with all of us. I just have to say that I am honored to have my wonderful friend, the District Attorney of Marin County, Miss Lori Frugoli. Lori, welcome.
Good morning, Lori, and thank you for thank you for joining us this morning. Just before I forget, this is a shameless little plug for Red Whale. They keep us going.
Really?
So,
really?
Thank you, Red Whale. And without you guys and without your awesome staff, we would be a disappointed photography studio around the corner.
Tired pigeons.
Yeah, thank you.
And he's not just spouting that out.
No,
thank
I'm
you.
not. Yeah.
Spouting.
So anyway, back to our regularly scheduled program of Welcome to Doughnuts for Breakfast, where action meets compassion. And we are honored to have you with us, Lori. Thank you very much for joining us today. And our topic this morning is
Women in Leadership.
I've read about it.
heard about it.
Something you might be familiar with.
And been providing it for quite some time, not just as a police officer, and but also as an assistant district attorney, and now the elected district attorney of our beloved Marin County. And Lori, what do you think that I know what you bring to the table when I watch how you compassionately and empathically uplift people and get into diversity, get into acceptance, get into helping people lift up in our community. But what do you think it is that you're looking around at the news, and a brand new governor of New York, and she's come in under circumstances where there was a power over some individuals in that circumstance, and you just watch these things and you know that because you've prosecuted these cases before. What is it that you know that's important for all of us in the community to start picking up about why it's important to get women in leadership? And I agree with it.
We bring, I believe that we women bring a different perspective to leadership, and we listen. It's a great lesson for me. I continue to learn every day.
Right.
And I think it's really important to not get in the mindset, which I think can happen to people, men and women, that, oh, I'm here, I've achieved what I need to, and I'm going to stay in this box because I know what I'm doing. And it's my biggest commitment has been to connect with my community. And you don't do that in your office. You do that by getting out in the community and talking to them and not judging people. That's been the biggest biggest lesson for me. One of the police chiefs who retired a couple of years ago, she gave a speech, and I asked her if I could take this statement because it's true. I was a police officer in the 80s, and the mindset of law enforcement at that time really was, I'm the cop, I'm right and you're wrong. And that carried throughout the justice system, right? That's how we got some of these systemic problems that we have. But you have to be able to really look and see with your heart and your morals and ethics and realize, okay, I can be the change. And if I have to step up and be that person, then I'll be that. And men do that as well, but I think it's a different tone. There's a different tone from women. And one thing, too, I've learned a lot is women and men who have families and have raised children, I see them in a management position as sometimes much more effective. Honestly, I think they have that built-in listening skill, and I just have noticed that. I didn't really notice it before, but in my position, I'm really seeing that now, and I think that's something that's really overlooked a lot.
I find it interesting. Two things that I caught. I swear I was listening. I wasn't just waiting.
No.
What you expressed was a very concrete growth mindset, which is interesting to apply to your career path, to law enforcement. I think that that's very underdeveloped in that particular job market. And I think that that piece of knowledge is enlightening, that it's probably a very critical part of being able to do work in the justice system effectively, is maintaining that growth mindset. The other side of that one that I want to just bring light to is the nurturing mindset that I think a lot of the justice system is missing right now. That idea that the justice system is designed to be the caretaker of the general public and not just the enforcer of the general public. That there's a difference. You said that you noticed that parents were more patient, better listeners, and I think that might be like a very big key, is that if our law enforcement is to be just, it also needs to be nurturing.
Right.
Wow.
That's true.
That was great.
There are some really great law enforcement leaders in the Bay Area, and one of the chiefs formerly at Novato, she started actually yoga and other mindfulness things within, I think it was the Emeryville Police Department. And I'm sure when she did that, she got
I gotta do what?
But we have a lot of that going on in our county. We have restorative justice practitioners who work in law enforcement. They work in the county and with different administrative offices, including mine. Honestly, I've had restorative justice practitioners not only work with my leadership team and my staff, but also they're going to work with us on a hate crime response team. So it's a different mindset, and sometimes people, a restorative circle, what is that? Well, when you're in kindergarten, we did it, right? It was just
That's true.
Well, so just because, let's pretend I don't know, what is restorative circle?
Restorative circle, and I'm not a restorative justice practitioner, it's different for every person, but it's instead of, if you and I had a disagreement, instead of sitting like this, we would have no barriers between us, and we would sit in a circle. And sometimes it's good to have somebody who's helping you navigate difficult conversations, which is what the practitioners do. And then that person would navigate you to how you got where you were, how you harmed me, or I harmed you, or how you were feeling. And they're really successful. And I think it's breaking down the barriers, and also a commitment to be honest in the room or in the conversation, which doesn't always happen.
It was very helpful to me to practice restorative justice provided by the county, because our home, our carport was burgled. My son actually helped apprehend the guy, and he was a young guy, and there was two of them. One agreed to restorative practice, and we had a great time. I had a conversation with he and his dad and a mediator, which was great. And I thought, okay, because there's no sense punishing a 15-year-old who's drunk, who's trying to look for more liquor on the side of your house in an outside bar, and you're thinking, okay, what are you going to do? And you don't want to punish this kid even more. And his father and he sat together and listened to me. And I had to tell him, I said, what you don't understand is my neighbors, who were also burglar, she had a gun. Yeah. That's what scares me.
Right.
That she would spend the rest of her life thinking about the fact that she killed a 15-year-old drunk kid.
Right.
Because he was not smart. And not wise because he was inhibited. Right. And the sheriff's department they were awesome. They were great. And, Under Sheriff Finnegan made fun of me because I said my son chased after him, caught him, and goes, yeah, you were still on the couch, weren't you? I go, you're right, Dennis. But go get him. You're so quick. But I think that practice taught me how important this is.
Oh, I'm sure he got so many more lessons from that,
He
that
did.
moment.
He did. And you know what? He said, and I had seen him since, and he's older now from that incident, and he just says, I can't think he woke me up. And I said, yeah, but I said, here's the thing. And that's why this is so important. Because if you agree to do it, if you as a victim agree to do this, you become a part of the education system that prevents them that school to prison pipeline, right? And that was what I thought was important.
Yeah.
And two, I think there's a big misconception. It's all about accountability. So if the person is not going to accept accountability for whatever it is they've done or is perceived they've done, it might not be successful or as successful. And that's a thing that a lot of people don't understand. They think it's just, a little pat on the back and they'll be okay. But accountability is hard.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that I find and we're using it in almost all our high schools now. And they are using it in kindergarten classes too, but on a different level. To really appreciate how you harm someone and vice versa. And for a person who's been victimized to go, wow, I've heard a little bit of your story, and now I appreciate more.
It makes you a person. It makes you a person.
But the other thing is, Laura, you're open to the diversity. Your deputy chief prosecuting attorney is a wonderful man named Otis Bruce. You've brought him in, and he is like you in the community, and I mean in the community, right?
He is. I have to say, I think we're one of the few offices in the state with that person of color in such a high leadership position. That's the number 2 position in our office, and usually that person is in the office doing administrative things, budget things. But my commitment was that we need to be out in the community, so he's in charge of our social justice and our recruitment programs, our intern programs. He created a Know Your Rights speaker series with an African American gentleman from the Public Defender's Office who's also bilingual, and with the chief of our probation department who's also a person of color. And so they go into the schools and talk about the career ladder opportunities around the county. And also when Liddell Dangerfield from the Public Defender's Office starts talking fluent Spanish, it really engages on a different level.
Yes.
And then this is hopefully our future.
Right.
Yes.
True intersectionality, like true diversity. I want to, because we're on this topic, how do you feel? Because you've obviously been a part of the community for a very long time. Do you feel like Marin County is taking big steps to create that kind of diversity? Do you feel like women in leadership are welcome within the Marin County community? I mean, we got our new mayor, Kate. She's amazing. What are your thoughts on that? Do you feel like Marin is ready for all of this?
Ready or not, you're
I love it.
not original. However, so I think in the vast majority of places, people are ready and they are open to it.
Good.
And the thing I do see is there's a difference too between like women in positions and then women of color. And I've watched for years when there would be, statements that we've improved our diversity this much because we hired so many women. I'm like, well, you're almost there.
Really?
But, and in some areas like public safety, especially fire, I think sometimes the physical abilities are required are sometimes barriers, but there's departments that help you get there and help you prepare for the testing. So, but I think it's been a beautiful change. Like I don't know if you know that in charge of our whole entire public health system is a woman of color. She'd be a great interview. She's also a former military person.
Yes,
What's
she's
her
brilliant.
Benita
I've been with her.
McLaren.
Yeah.
Hey, Benita. You want to come on our show?
She's really
She's
wonderful.
very
And
good.
she wasn't in her position very long before COVID and everything else happened. And she's a brilliant leader. So, yeah, especially on the county level, in the county complex, it certainly is happening. So, yeah. And I think it's happening in private industry too in the county. So.
What I loved about Benita is she's very direct. very direct. It is, and you're like, fresh air is coming in, and this is what's needed, because if in entitled communities, and Marin is an entitled community. I live here, raise my kids here. Some folks suffer from inflamed entitleitis, and I think it's really important to be direct, and because if you tell them the truth, and you hold nothing back filtered because you're worried about this and that, you're going to get a better response. I always felt like just tell the truth and shame the devil, whatever. You would just tell them, look, this is the way it's got to be. And especially about masks and especially about COVID, vaccinations. Help us help you, but help you by letting us help you. Tell you the truth, right?
I know there was a lot of criticism of different decisions through
Right.
COVID, and there still are. And I was someplace, and she said, "Here's the bottom line: we're saving lives.
Yes.
This is our priority,
Right.
And this is the path we have to take to get
With
there."
you.
Right.
Yeah.
And it kind of like,
Yep.
It's a conversation stopper. Like, how do you disagree with that? Like, we're saving lives. Well, I don't care. You're like, well, that's a you problem. You should reevaluate your choices. Like, how do you disagree with that? I mean,
exactly. And
somebody who just is going to disagree is going to disagree regardless.
Exactly.
But
it's hard to disagree with saving your priority of saving lives,
Right.
because that's her job.
right.
I mean, she has, I think, 800 or so many employees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, you should have her as a guest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
We will.
So, what would you say is the biggest struggle with being a woman in your position and in leadership?
Good question.
We asking hard questions.
I'm sorry.
No, that's great.
I don't
okay.
really feel,
Okay.
I don't know if it's right to say, me personally, I don't feel the woman part of it is that much of an issue, because I was a police officer for so long, and I went
Right.
through that and proved myself.
Yeah.
And in the office, the DA's office, I was not the first woman. We had several women leaders. We had an elected woman DA before. So I don't, it's rarely when I go, oh, that was because I was a woman. Now, I could be not really clear on that, or not appreciating it,
Right.
but I'm not uncomfortable in a room of 20 police chiefs and me,
Right.
and there's maybe 2 other women.
Right.
So I'm not uncomfortable with that position. I think that makes it different for me.
Yeah.
And also, I think people know I'm not going to put up with it.
Right.
Right.
So
Right.
I think that's part of it too. But I don't walk into a room large and in charge either. That's
Right.
not how I am. That's not who I am.
Right.
And it doesn't, for me,
Yeah.
that's just not who I am. But I think for the job part of it, the hardest part is not being able to talk about some things, like decisions that we make, or when an investigation is ongoing, we just can't say it. And that's, to me, that's the hardest part,
Exactly.
not being able to tell people, and especially with juveniles. You know, the school to prison pipeline you're
Right.
talking about, with juveniles' records and their conduct, even in schools when it's discipline, is protected.
Yeah.
And so when other parents' kids are victimized by things, unless there's restorative justice thing within the room where you keep it to yourself, the parents get very frustrated thinking nothing's happening, and that might not be the case.
Yeah.
And that's just really hard to carry
Yes.
through
Yeah.
for me. But yeah,
Okay, personal question. Do you have children?
I have a stepdaughter,
Okay.
and she's about to have a special birthday. So, but she's has a child of her own. He's like 20. I think he's 22.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay.
no youngsters. I have 4-footed pets at home.
Yes.
I say my next love is gonna have 4 hooves and a tail.
Yes.
Horses are my
Beautiful.
passion when I'm not at work. So.
That's
Quite the
awesome.
brilliant horse person, and really great
Talk
as
about
well.
Restorative.
Well, you have to know how to find your smile. One of my best friends was a.
I'm sorry. Say that one more time.
Yeah.
You have to know how to find your smile,
There it is. Now.
even if it's behind a mask. One of my best friends was, in her words, an army brat, and that when she used that term with me, I carry that with me because it's different for every person, right? So, but I do make sure when I have new employees that I remind them of that, because our jobs are stressful.
Yes.
So
How do you feel about work-life balance as it pertains to being a woman in a leadership position? I know that we've our society has gotten a lot more work-life balance focused over the last, I'd say 10 years or so, probably a slow build.
But the last 2 years.
That's different. There was a paradigm shift.
Yes,
in the last 2 years.
And needed.
It's hard.
Needed, absolutely.
Shift was a spin.
Yeah, like, there was a pirouette and a
We're still
plie.
spinning.
Seriously, totally different.
Brilliantly
It's
put.
hard, and it's different. Each person, it's different for them as well, right?
Yeah.
And so that was a big struggle for a lot of my staff when COVID first started. Some people were able to take family leave, and some weren't, and it was hard.
Yeah.
And I think people are much more appreciative of the basic things like who's educating my child.
Right.
Me, here they are. Like,
Right.
And that
Yeah.
was so hard to watch my staff go through that, and then we did a lot of our court, and still is remote, so
Yeah.
they can do it at home or in the office, and
Yeah.
it's a struggle. And I'm lucky that I don't have children at home right now, and so but when I see that, it's hard, and you have to appreciate and respect that, and
Yeah.
that's the hard thing. And I think we're getting there. And even law enforcement officers in the day, they wouldn't rearrange their hours so they could stay home and help with child care. But you're seeing so many more men step up than in
Another
the day.
equalizer.
And yeah,
It's another. It's like
But-
that paradigm shift, that equalizer. Whereas predominantly, mothers were the ones who did
Right.
that, who did the time off, who sacrificed the PTO,
exactly.
and were home caring. It has been a great equalizer.
And I think it's great for children too.
Yeah,
You know, I
Absolutely.
mean, fathers weren't spending that time.
it's a much more balanced
It is.
system.
And it
result
teaches
of
us
it.
we need each other in family and community and extended community, and especially even with seniors, because you have to advocate for the seniors in your community because of adult protective services, and you do great work with adult protective services and with child protective services. This stuff is really urgently important now, probably more than ever. Am I wrong?
And our immigrant community is really always a concern. So we make sure we stay in touch with the Center for Domestic Peace because they take actually calls that we might not hear about later.
Gotcha.
So every week we would give them data throughout COVID to see if our numbers were the same or where our problems were. And we meet with them regularly, and it's important.
It's amazing. I know there was a very real concern in the education community about the kids being home and
Right.
not being able to have that extra set of eyes on children.
Yes.
You know, I know that that's a lot of suspicion around, particularly homeschooling, is because the kids there's no outside authority if the kids aren't going to school, and that was one of the concerns. It's really heartening to hear that you work so closely with the Center for Domestic Peace to just make sure that there's a balancing of scales, and checks and balances. You know, I know a lot of people don't understand the complexity of how a community governs itself,
Right.
and it's not just law enforcement. You have, you know, those integral parts of the community that work in tandem to make sure all the bases get covered.
I think that's a big misconception. I always call it demystifying the social justice system because people don't understand how much we work together. My office works very closely with our public defender's office and our probation department. And when COVID first started, there were a lot of court orders that a lot of the doors open and people were released from custody, but we did it with probation and with the public defender and with the sheriff's office, and we navigated people to services. So you didn't see people just tossed to the curb.
Right.
Sorry to be blunt, but
No, it's true.
without any help.
Right.
And they all got navigated to housing or a program, and their probation officer knew where they were and was
Right.
helping them.
Right.
And at the end, we reduced the jail population by almost 50%. But we did it together.
Right.
So, and that doesn't happen in all counties, and I think that's something people really don't.
Yeah.
Well, Mike Daly and Jose Varela, who endorsed you already, that's the public defender, the former public defender. We have a new one on the horizon, but he endorsed you because he understood that you're part of the answer and the solution. And the same with Mike Daly, because when I did Wall of Change, your prosecuting attorneys were in the room. Everybody was feeling it.
Yeah.
we work together in collaboration, hand in glove. We have solutions to lowering not just the population, but reintegrating these women and men back into their family through recovery.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, and that's
Part
a
of
big-
your-
yeah.
yeah.
A lot of people don't understand that we've had a lot of Rotary job shadows and
Right.
other program job shadows, and I always make sure I take them next door to talk to Jose or whoever's there, and they have a life coach at the public defender's office, and a public defender speaks to them, and I take them to the Prandy Center so they can see where we interview children, where
Jeanette
they go
Prandy.
to court.
Yeah.
I don't want them just to have this one vision that, oh, we're out here doing this, we sent people to jail. And the one takeaway from a student a couple of years ago, which I carry with me, she said, they stand up at the Rotary meeting and say what they learned. She said, I didn't understand how everybody works together for the betterment of everyone, especially people who are in trouble who you can help. And she said, I didn't understand it, especially because I'm in mock trial. And so it's like fighting all the time. You don't talk to the other person, and you put on these airs. And she said, I had no idea this is how it really works.
It's not argumentative.
Lower the
Yeah.
aggression and increase the solutioneering.
Yeah.
That's what you guys do.
And there are moments when it doesn't work, and
Right.
we can't do that. But if you're an adult and know at the end of the day we're trying to help people,
Right.
and if you do the right thing, victims will feel whole as well.
Right.
We can't.
It's
We never
recovery.
forget our victims.
Right.
But I think that's one misconception that we're still working on that, and that's why I think Otis, the program that going into the schools that Otis thought about, is really going to help open people's eyes. But we start with our
yeah.
youth, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
20 years ago, I think it was closer to 20 years ago, we had a young man killed in San Francisco on New Year's Eve morning, and Otis and I went to his high school to talk to all of them, the kids at Novato High. And I was overwhelmed with how intuitive and brilliant his leadership was. He grew up in a family in the South, and the family were sharecroppers. He has risen to a level of wisdom that's Solomonic because of he's just a spiritual person who gets why the law can make a change in the world. Yeah.
Yeah, and when he says, like many that I see you, it's like legit. He
Yeah.
sees you and
Exactly
he can
right.
see your
Yeah.
pain. And he's raised several children too.
Yes, he has.
But
Yes,
he
he
also
has.
has coached youth. So
Yeah,
he
for
can
years.
walk into
Richmond.
a room of like fifth graders and have a totally different impression on them than I do.
Yeah.
Because he can still relate to them.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you as well. And you have to be smart enough to know, where your place is and who's going to do the best job.
Yeah.
That's
So
important.
it is.
So,
Yeah.
what would you say to a little girl aspiring to be in your position one day?
What a great question.
I'd say you can do anything you want in life. You just have to believe in yourself. And also, as you grow up, keep your eye on where you want to be and find a way to meet the person you'd like to be. And try to use them as a mentor.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Because you never know where it might take you a totally different path.
Right.
But I was lucky. I mean, I knew what I wanted to be. I didn't really start out wanting to be a police officer, frankly. I thought I was going to be a dog trainer. So
Life
I know. So I went and rode around with some police officers who had the police dogs in Richmond and San Francisco. And then I saw how they were able to help people, and I thought, I'm going to do that. No one in my family has ever done anything like that, and I'm an only child. And my parents were kind of in, blue collar people in the newspaper business. So, and from there I realized I could do more. I didn't just want to. The more I went to court, the more I knew, this is where the change is happening. It's happening in the courtroom. And so I went to law school while I was a police officer, and never thought I'd be the DA. So you never know where it's going to take you, but start with where your passion is and really meet that person. And that's my favorite thing is connecting people. And in my position, I've met so many more people.
Right.
Like if I met a student who was interested in video things, trust me, I would take their hand and say, do you want to meet someone? And then you would love it, and they
Yeah,
would love it. And
yeah.
it's really something so small sometimes is how the change really happens. But always follow your passion. And again, if you know what makes you smile, that's going to lead you to your passion as well, right? So,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, one of the things when Lori was young, she had a very good friend, Erica Cleathan, who's a family friend of ours, and I have watched that friendship. It helps you navigate things about diversity and color and acceptance and the wisdom of having friends that are multicultural, multi-backgrounds, and you have lived that.
Right.
You have lived that.
Yeah, and we met because she was an Explorer Scout, as was I, when I think she was a senior in high school, and
Yeah.
I was just my first year at college in Marin. And she needed a ride home, so I gave her a ride home. And the next thing you know, we've been friends. That was like 1976, I think. Wow. So and sometimes when she lives in Southern California now, and she comes up, I've had a couple people say, "How come you didn't tell me your best friend was black?" And I'm like, I wouldn't.
Wouldn't even enter your.
Wasn't even on my radar because she's my best friend.
Yeah.
And to say that, it would be.
It's weird, right?
It would almost be patronizing to her.
Yeah.
I just don't. And so it was funny when somebody said that to me. I'm like, it isn't.
Yeah.
Like, why did I need
And
to say
her
that?
dad-
Well, I
It's
can,
weird.
yeah.
Her dad
Yeah,
was
but
a
it's
tough old
funny.
Marine and a U.S. Postal Inspector. He was a tough guy.
was.
He was a good guy. I think about your life, and I think about Gary, your husband, and his life, and being a cop, and just being part of this 40-year journey here in Marin to watch it grow. You absolutely amplify everything that I wanted for this community to become because of what you do and how you lead. And the same with Mary Jane Burke, the same with many of the people that are here. They bring a great Sarah Solomonic wisdom to how to build that sense of community to a community that needs it. It's you folks are like medicine that's needed, and it's an anchored wisdom, right? Which I think, like you bring when you even when you ask questions, and he brings, because I met this guy 21 years ago when he was on my TV show. At Sierra Fell High after Columbine.
Saving our schools from hate and violence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a weird, crazy shift.
Yeah, it was.
Yes.
We've known each other since I was 2.
Oh my goodness!
So-
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a lot of our life experience.
Same kind of deal as with Erica. Yeah.
Columbine was a crazy shift in innocence for kids.
Wow. I
And
never thought of that.
It was
Yeah.
a crazy shift. You grow up with fire drills. You grow up with earthquake drills because you're from California, and the joke of, stop, drop, and roll, get under a desk. And those are all like, you're totally desensitized to that because you grew up with it from preschool on.
Right.
And
And
then,
that hasn't happened either.
right.
This.
And then all of a sudden, you're having active shooter drills. Where you're being told as a 14-year-old, 15-year-old, 16-year-old in Marin County that you have to be aware that you got to stay away from windows, stay away from doors, because there might be somebody with a handgun, a shotgun, an automatic weapon in the tennis court. I think you had already graduated, but we had a lockdown at San Rafael High because there was believed to be a man at the San Rafael High courts with a shotgun. We were on full lockdown. I remember being in music class and being like, "This is my life. This is my life right now."
Wow.
And it's progressively, there has been a progressive loss of innocence in our youth as we've gotten older. And I think that has required a change in style, a more nurturing kind of leadership, a more understanding, open, compassionate kind of guidance from people of authority. And I think that's slower in other places to realize that our kids are understanding how the world works really at a much younger age.
And you have to know that is reality,
Yeah, it just is.
and it's frightening.
Yeah.
Do you think we didn't do you any favors by hiding so much of the world from you? I don't know, because I'm in my 70s now, and I'm thinking. Stop.
You said that out loud.
But I don't know if we, because even with my own kids being raised here in Marin, I hid so many things from them that I had to deal with, including local stuff, right, that I had to deal with. Like, I can't hide from them that the three of us have been on here talking to so many moms who's lost children to suicide and to overdoses. I can't hide that anymore. But we weren't doing you a favor by protecting you. What do you think?
I think that's a luxury not all parents had, first and foremost. Those were all things that I was very aware of and very, very, very comfortable with talking about and acknowledging probably by the time I was in third grade.
Wow.
All of that.
Yep.
So I think that there's a lot to unpack there. I don't necessarily think that it's a bad thing to
Shelter them.
not necessarily shelter, but keep a very fine grained filter on what you allow your children to be exposed to. I think that life is hard, and if you can frame it in a way that says life is hard, but at home it's not. Period. The world is going to make you
so
tough,
brilliant.
and the world is going to try to break you, but here it's okay to break. Here it's okay to be soft. We will always put you back together. We will always have those tough conversations, and we will do it in a way that is going to build you back up and send you back in the world better. Like that's something that's also very new to our society. Allowing children to be weak and soft and vulnerable and heard is not something that existed 20 years ago. We weren't allowed to be emotionally whole individuals as children 20 years ago.
Right.
And it's so much more difficult to be a child these days.
Yeah.
I was gonna say I wish I could have gone first because, to a certain degree, you're always way wiser with your words in that
Yeah,
regard.
she is. I know.
I just wanted
That
to say,
was
you know,
pretty amazing.
to a certain
It
degree,
was.
though, I think the protection is good because when else are you gonna let a child be a child? Right? I mean, we all have to grow up with our ideals. We all have to know that it's safe, like going back to home.
Yeah.
It's like we got to know that our parents or the people in our lives are the ones that's supporting us and allow
Right.
us to grow and allow us to imagine, allow us to be creative, allow us to be 5-year-olds,
Right.
you know, or 3-year-olds or 18-year-olds for that
Right.
matter. But I think to a certain degree, you got to shelter some of it because what are they going to do with it? They don't understand it. There's no context to make sense of it at that young of an age.
Unless there is.
Oh, right.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I mean, I don't have an answer. I just know that it is a certain degree good to protect them,
Oh, absolutely.
to let them have their innocence and as a child.
For as long as possible.
You know, in 1972, I was working as a juvenile officer in St. Louis, and I came across a family of young kids who opened the door, and they were burning furniture to keep warm. And the whole home was full of smoke, and I was just doing a welfare check. So, you know, when I smelled smoke, I booted the door, and my partner just fell apart.
Yep.
I can't see this. And I said, come on, kids, come out with me. We protected him, and we got him to a safe location. Mom and Dad were down at the local bar, drunk and slamming. And when we got him out of there, I remember the little kid looked at me, and he goes, That's not how a home's supposed to be, right?
Oh, wow.
And I'm driving the car, and the kid with me was from an extremely privileged family, and they had wanted him to become more worldly, and this wasn't what he had in mind.
Saving lives, is he good?
Well,
Right. But the shock
It's a
of it
reality
later in
check.
the
life.
shock of it later.
It's a reality check.
Yes. See, that's what I'm saying.
It's a reality
Yeah.
check. And of
Yeah.
course you want to shelter from things that you feel like they don't have to be privy to, you know, or a conversation that maybe they're not cognitively prepared
Right.
for. You know, I have 2 children. I have a 9-year-old and a 3-year-old, and my children are biracial. And one of the things that kind of got my hackles up, and not a lot does, but the question of who his ancestors were came up as a project for his 2nd grade class. And he's biracial. We talked about his grandmother on his father's side because we didn't have any ancestors to talk about on his mother's side. And that was a conversation that I wasn't ready to have. So it's those little things, like how do you keep that innocence? How do you give them a safety just a little bit longer?
Why
And the
would
same
someone
thing,
hate me just because of the color of my skin?
and
Or
that's
how-
But
how
I
do you
think
explain that
that
to a child?
I think that that's kind of the same mindset that I think women bring to the table. How do we give a safe space? How do we? And I don't say that like a snowflake. I say that like how do we promote growth? How do we enforce a growth mindset for those that we work with, those that work underneath us? We are down to the last, I think 30 seconds of our show.
Wow.
Lori, thank you so much. I'm
Yeah.
so happy
Been
to
my
have
agree.
met
honor.
you, and I hope that we will have many more conversations. I have so many questions.
Absolutely.
And I want to say both of you and Trevor are a gift to my wisdom. I have to sit back. I learn more from you, I think, weekly
Agreed.
than I do than my college professors. And over the 40 years I've known you, you've certainly taught me to be more of a better human by accepting and understanding things, and you're a gift to me as well. And Trevor's always a gift to me, and he has been since he was a little kid. So, folks, thank you very much,
Thank you.
and we hope that you are enhanced as we are by the great sharing that we have here. We want to build community unity, love, acceptance, diversity, and compassion. And that's what we're all about. And having the great district attorney come and share with us her heart and her wisdom has been a great blessing to us, right?
Yeah, most definitely. Thank you
Ditto.
very much.
Yeah.
That
Thank
was Doughnuts
you.
for Breakfast with Desire to Inspire Studios Foundation. Stay tuned for our We Are the Remedy, airing at 5 p.m. on our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And next month we'll be talking about food and health in the community. We'll see you next week.
Woo-hoo!